This morning I'm going to tie a pheasant tail. I'm going to put in a 2457 TMC hook. I like to tie my nymphs on a rounded hook instead of a straight hook. To me it seems to be more natural as the nymph is going down the river. We're going to start out with some brown thread, tie it in right at the eye. Sometimes that happens. Alright, so now your thread is tied in, and I take copper wire that's small. So this is UTC small copper. I'm going to tie it in right at the eye, and then run my thread and the wire all the way back onto the bend of the hook. To about there. Next, the most important thing is to take some pheasant tail, and we're going to take an even amount of fibers. It's important that you have an even amount. What we're going to do, this is going to tie like 90% of the fly. So for this size, I'd probably use 6 fibers to do that. So I'm going to count out 6 fibers and cut them off. And I'm going to tie them in. So I only want these to show out a little bit. If you ever find a nymph out in the water, they're very small tails usually. So I'm going to tie it in right at the end there. A couple wraps. I'm going to pull everything back, and I'm going to move my thread forward so that there's just a little bit more to about the, I'll say the 2/3 mark. And now I'm going to take this pheasant tail and I'm just going to wrap it. One wrap right next to each other, all the way around, all the way up to my thread. Once I get to the thread, I'm going to tie it off, but I'm not going to cut it off. So a couple wraps in front, a couple wraps behind. I'm going to take my copper wire, and we're going to palmer this and make a good ribbing all the way up to where we just stopped. This kind of adds a little bit of durability to the fly. Makes a little bit of segmentation in that. The last wrap on this is going to be in front of what's going to become the wing casing. I'm going to just take 2 wraps, and then I'm going to helicopter this off. So I'm going to hold my thread and just kind of rotate it around. Maybe. Helicopter it off. Next, I'm going to take some peacock curl. And I'm going to take like 3 strands of peacock curl, 3 or 4, and I'm going to cut the tips even. So I'm just going to cut them right on the even, so everything is even on the end. I'm going to tie it in right behind where the wing casing is. And then I'm going to take my thread all the way back so that my first wrap begins right next to the wing casing, and then move my thread forward to the eye of the hook. You may have to adjust your hook so it's pointing, so that is more flat, so that the thread doesn't roll off. Now I'm going to take my peacock curl and I'm going to wrap it. And I'm going to make sure that my first wraps go backwards until the wing casing bent backwards. Then I can come forward with all of this to the eye of the hook and tie it off. Couple wraps, and then cut it off. Okay, at this point you're going to want to keep tension on your thread the whole time. We're going to take all of these and make a wing casing right over the top, and we're just going to do 2 reps, and that's it. Keeping tension on it, I'm going to split these fibers in half, and half go to one side and half go to the other. So we're going to do the far side for me, and you hold them down a little bit and you make a wrap. But before you come up over, you're going to grab these, pull them down the same way, and finish that wrap. Make a couple wraps. The fly is basically done at this point, and what we're going to do is whip finish it. So go ahead and put a whip finish on and cut your thread off. Now you have these long legs. These are the legs that are sitting out here. That will become the legs anyways. And what I do is I usually grab them all at one time and I cut them just behind the wing casing. And that is the pheasant tail. This is tied the traditional way, and that it's a small mayfly imitation.